Welcome to Season 4 of the Bird Joy Podcast. Your hosts, Dexter Patterson and Jason Hall, are back with more birds, more bird joy, and plenty of laughs along the way. Each episode brings new stories, fun conversations, and a whole flock of good vibes. We're happy you're here. We really miss the homies, and we hope you enjoy this season. You ready? Let's go.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Bird Joy Podcast. I'm Dexter Patterson here with my amazing co-host, Jason Hall. And today, folks, we are joined with Sharon Dorsey, an urban naturalist, wildlife biologist, educator, and founder of SharInNature. Sharon helps people notice, understand, and connect with nature in everyday spaces, especially urban environments. She is also an author and contributor to books that explore ecology and identity. Through birding, research, and storytelling, she encourages people to build what she calls an ecological identity, a way of seeing themselves as a part of nature. We are very excited today to talk about her journey, her research, her writing, and how birding can open up doors to deeper relationships with ecosystems around us. Sharon, welcome to the Bird Joy Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Dexter and Jason. Happy to be here.
Yay! Awesome. This season, bro. We just keep bringing in these, we just keep teaming up these superstars. Sharon, let's talk a little bit about your path into nature. Can you take us back a little bit, your early experiences with nature, and maybe specifically birds?
Yeah, that's a great question to kind of lay the foundation for who I am today. I'm super fortunate to have grown up in Baltimore, Maryland, just outside the city in the suburbs of Baltimore. And my high school actually is called a magnet school, where they have certain specialties, almost like you major in a focus in high school. My school was called Western School of Technology and Environmental Science. So, right there in the name, path I'm going down.
Yeah.
There's actually two types of sciences we had at that school. One was more of a research-based classic environmental science. I actually took the path for environmental technology, more of the applied hands-on science. That looked like having our own greenhouse at my school where we grew plants and had a hydroponics system where we had rockfish in an aquarium. Their poop gave us nutrients and water to water our plants and grow different kind of herbs and flowers to sell, for our student body and staff. And then I don't know if the plants came back to the fish. This is the cycle. Seeing that firsthand in high school was a notable experience to just learn how everything's connected. And then from high school, I was fortunate to continue on my studies at George Mason University in Virginia, Northern Virginia. I studied environmental science with a focus in ecology. And again, kind of had more of a plant focus there with wetlands. In urban ecosystems, it's really important how urban wetlands function as like a sponge in a filter system before rainwater runoff come into a main body of water. The wetlands function as a way to kind of trap nutrients so that eutrophication or like over-nutrification of a water body does not happen. So learning how wetlands actually benefit from too much nutrients. So seeing how they grow, they multiply, and just kind of looking at how a variety of species respond differently to water and nutrients. So it's kind of in the soil, ecology, hands-on, getting my hands dirty in high school and college. And it wasn't until graduate school, and that happened right around 2020, really well aligned with Black Birders Week, I have to say. Crazy timing, man.
Amazing how that got everybody, right?
Things happen for a reason, and I was applying to schools. I was looking at Virginia Tech and was kind of cold emailing professors, looking at their biographies, see who would align with me. And there was a professor doing endangered species work, particularly with piping plovers. And I didn't know what a plover was. I didn't know if they were endangered. But I said, I sent my email. He responded back to me pretty well. And by summer 2020, I had kind of confirmed I'd be attending Virginia Tech to study this bird. And that was, again, well aligned with the proliferation of social media folks like yourselves identifying as birders, claiming space in this field. And I just felt so supported, and all my self-doubt and apprehension about pursuing this new thing was just like, alleviated. Because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to this new scary world during COVID, no less.
Sure.
But I could at least see myself in so many of my peers and like new virtual friends. That's kind of the early beginnings of how I came into particularly shorebird ecology, and how you guys didn't know it, but you two were part of my path to gaining confidence as I started grad school.
Oh
Let's
man, see,
go.
she coming off the jump, making us blush over here.
I
See, I mean,
know. Like, a little
trying to
teary
get it
over here,
together.
you know.
Listen. I mean, Dexter and I are known to love a good shorebird too. I mean, we both have a love for pipe and plovers. He texted me when he got one on the lake shore over there. You know, I've seen him up in New York at Rockaway Beach, and it sounds like you from high school kind of knew which roads you were going down, and it sounds like it was a lot of curiosity, a lot of experimentation of getting your hands dirty, you know, so to speak. And then you end up in grad school studying one of the most endangered birds on the planet. Do you know when in your brain you were like, listen, 100%, 10 out of 10, without a doubt, this is what I'm doing for my career? Like what was that? What was that? Because it sounds like it was an incredible kind of continuum. But I just wonder when you sat back and you were like, yep, nope, not going to be a doctor. Not going to be a lawyer. Let me know.
Yeah. I have to attribute some of my interest in the environment and nature in general to sports. My background has been in soccer and track and field. I came for a track meet this morning, actually. And just running outside, running through the woods for my warm-ups. My high school was so eco-conscious. We did not tear down any trees to build any fields. So we actually didn't have any sports fields, no football field, no soccer field. We would use existing infrastructure at a local college to have our competitions there. But that meant for our practices, we would just run around our neighborhood, the trails near high school. So I think my interests in nature and why I chose that as a career and not medical field, not legal field, was just early exposure and joy and tranquility and peace. And the second home I kind of found through my practices, always being outside and seeing the trees change color, noticing the birds, seeing, geese poop on the ground. We have to avoid those in the soccer field sometimes.
I know that.
So I think I'm glad you kind of doubled down on that question, Jason. So I really think sports kind of led me to nature, actually.
Love it. And you were doing outdoor sports. So it's funny. I always tell people it's funny what happens when we start to pay attention to everything around us. You're already out there. You're already doing something you love. Just being outside makes you feel great. And then you just started adding to that joy. I really love that. I love that so much.
That too, because when we were interviewing Sam Desjardins, we were talking about when they build spaces for folks, but they only assume that people of color want to be outdoors for sports. And it sounds like your high school, shout out to your high school, like doing an amazing job of saying, yeah, we out here, but hey, Sharon, there's also this part of the outdoors, and something in there allowed them to foster your curiosity there, even though you were out busting it, running through the forest or on a field. Like there were moments for you to stop and like, that's what it should be for everybody. It's like if you're out at football practice, there's no reason why that's the only time you can be outside. Do those players know that there's other things in the outdoors for them to do? So like, I think that's an incredible story. I think it's an example of how we should pursue, quote unquote, the outdoors for everybody.
Nature is everywhere. So yeah, even really if you're on the baseball diamond, maybe not quite in a swimming pool indoors.
You never know. You get some gulls maybe show up at your pool, something like that.
Sometimes when house sparrows sneak into buildings too. I've seen some sparrows inside of some coffee shops, so they'll make their way inside.
Listen, I'm not going to pretend like I haven't accidentally nudged a bag of birdseed open in the middle of Home Depot when I saw the sparrow. I mean, listen, homie got to survive.
Yep, looking out for the homie, exactly.
Sharon, you often describe yourself as an urban naturalist. What does that term mean to you?
Being an urban naturalist is really all-encompassing of all aspects of nature. I think I'm more than a birder. I think I'm more than a wildlife biologist. I really do try to notice the flora and fauna. I'm not an expert, but I do notice and appreciate and try to look at the variety, diversity of the species, if I know the species, but also just the features of it, how it looks, how it smells, how it feels. And I think that's part of being a naturalist, being curious and not always knowing the answer, but just being curious enough to investigate further and note your observations. And being in Baltimore, that's where the urban piece comes in, that a lot of folks downplay the green spaces in and around Baltimore. I'm so fortunate to live near the Gwynn Falls Leakin Park forest system, as well as Patapsco State Park forest system. And the forest buffer that's provided for those river bodies is great. There's paths, paved paths, as well as foot trails and dirt paths. I think people don't notice the green spaces in Baltimore like they should. And it's my job. I feel it's my job as someone that loves being outside and is generally a pretty inviting person to invite others, my friends and my network out with me when I do explorations, different programs I lead, and try to show them, here's a place you can go. I'm bringing you here today, but it's well within your means and access level to get here on your own. I'm not really one to go, too far from 20 minutes from the heart of the city. I don't really go hiking in Shenandoah or to Great Falls in Virginia because that's not my backyard. For me, it's the pockets around the Baltimore Inner Harbor. Like I said, the Patapsco State Park system. And there's just so many resources and people, good rangers, good interpretive guides. So I think once people kind of get over the fear of just being outside in general, they'll realize there's a lot more in urban spaces than they originally thought.
I love that because when I first started really nerding out about birds, it took me to places in the city that I literally didn't know exist. And I was like, there's no way, like this beautiful space has been 5 minutes from my house the whole time. This park has been here the whole time. This wetland, I was like, it's wild when you just start really get out there and realize like even in a city, and Madison is nowhere near Philly or Baltimore, on the bus line, 5-10 minutes away from you all the time. Like there are so many opportunities to go explore. And I love that that's your emphasis because so many times people just don't think that birds are in the city. And it's like, it is so crazy because they are, and so many other things. So I love that you're paying attention to everything. I've been using the Seek app more, trying to learn some plants and trying to learn different trees and different things like that. It is really cool when you start to open it up a little bit more. And I tell people all the time, birding isn't about the birds. It's everything. It's that entire outdoor experience. Love it.
Yeah.
And I saw you out with my homie Ranger Bree on Instagram. Brianna.
Yeah, Bree. Shout out to Bree.
She was a ranger at John Hines National Wildlife Refuge here in Philly for a while, and then she dipped on us, which I gave
we
her
stole
a
her to Maryland.
Yeah, I know. And I know she's doing some really awesome stuff now too, but just seeing that made me smile. I think I commented on it. Like I just, that's one of my favorite things is seeing people that I know either in person or know them through socials getting together and like just being out there. What's your favorite part about, or tell me about some special times where you've helped people recognize the diversity or the value of the green space in their own city or neighborhood or their own park? That's the part that I think Dexter and I really love is people coming to a place that they've been hundreds of times before, but you show them something new. Talk to us about what that's like in Baltimore.
Yeah, I want to answer that question, but also come back to the community, the Breeze, and some other folks I've met virtually, but that have done some like bird meetups or just, got to meet them in person as well. Because now she has her own business. Shout out to Deeply Rooted Outdoor Education, another kind of environmental program around Baltimore and the DC area. And she's always continues to be a learner alongside me, encourages me to take workshops. The one we went to was the Maryland Biodiversity Project, I think, on a field trip to Eastern Shore of Maryland to learn more about shorebirds and waterfowl and around folks that know their stuff. They're really intelligent, but we knew that we had to look out for each other, being the only Black people in those spaces. And I just love learning alongside her and she's a mentor of mine for sure. I'm glad she's closer to my home now. And so many other folks.
I feel some type of way about it, but I'm glad you got it.
Sorry, Jason. Even having existing friends out in nature is wonderful. But bringing new people into the space, or to spaces that they have driven by for a long time, haven't done a walk there to slow down. I had a short stint also at a National Wildlife Refuge called Patuxent Research Refuge. It's another Fish and Wildlife Service property. And I was an intern there for a couple of years, about just over a year. And I remember meeting people that grew up in a town called Bowie, which is predominantly Black. It's in Prince George's County, Maryland. And they would always say, I always saw the sign for National Wildlife Refuge on the highway, but I just never stopped. And I just never found the path. And there's always some reason why they didn't take that exit. It is a little off the beaten path and the sign is deceiving. So there needs to improve accessibility and they know that. I really think that my presence as a Black intern, as a community engagement intern, and having a space of someone from the community, even though I'm not from PG, but from Baltimore, close enough. It helps people feel more invited. And like I would host programs to show my face. Hey, I'm the ranger leading the walk today. And I think that brought more folks out to feel more comfortable to go on the walk. And again, the number of times I'd heard from those adults and some of the youth from a local HBCU, Bowie State University, we brought some kids out that were doing a photography class. And the professor really saw value in having a nature-based photography lesson and having kids with the cameras just capture and notice and show juxtaposition of, their home life versus life in nature. And I love reaching youth, especially because you get the spark early. So those moments are really special to me. And I think I led 2 walks with their class, fall semester and a spring semester. And the fall semester folks had told the spring semester students to look forward to that day, look forward to that field trip, because it was a really good time. So I love that they kind of spread the word and excitement amongst their student body. So I think my time at Patuxent Research Refuge, working with the community of Bowie, was a really impactful time for me and really solidified that once I finished my time as an intern, I want to keep doing this in some capacity. So that's kind of what I do to this day.
Love it. When people see, that's representation. A lot of folks, they see somebody like you and like, oh, okay, I might pull up for that. I don't know. I don't know about anybody else, but I see a familiar, trustworthy face. I'm gonna go hang out in nature with Sharon. So thank you for doing that, because that's how we change the access conversation. That's how we show people what's around them, even in their neighborhood. Thank you for doing that. Your background, Sharon, you've worked in wetlands, you've done shorebird nesting things, you've done passerine, banding, program evaluation. How has that variety of research shaped the way that you kind of observe and talk about ecosystems today?
I think having a variety of experiences has really helped me adapt to maybe what my audience who I'm working with or talking to. You find a touch point with everybody. I really think I say yes to opportunities that present themselves. I haven't really like pursued anything intentionally except until my LLC, but a lot of things that came my way, the shorebirds, I kind of stumbled into that. The wetlands, I kind of stumbled into that. The passerine banding was a product of having to prepare for my shorebirds. I can't handle these endangered shorebirds until I handle birds in general. So I love to come back to kind of how you kind of get experience with wildlife handling and how do you kind of go about that. So let's come back to that a little bit later. The program evaluation was also an opportunity to work with a nonprofit who is doing nature-based programs, but wasn't really evaluating the impact or knowledge received by the students. They were going on walks, talking about nature, but were they really retaining the information? Were they really being influenced by what's being said? So I helped them develop a really simple, 10-question survey with the work of one of my professors who does human dimensions work, and just tried to do a pre-walk survey and a post-walk survey. And just to kind of gauge what are the students retaining? Are we really making an impact? And I thought that would help them with their grant writing. If they want more money, to ask for more money to help fundraise for their initiatives, it's good to show that the work they're doing is making an impact through data. And that was a successful project I did in Roanoke, Virginia with a nonprofit back in 2021 or 2022. It's all blending together now in grad school. That was an opportunity for me to take environmental education to a deeper level, not just teach it, but assess the teaching. So I would love to do more things like that. I haven't had a chance to do one since. I thought that was a cool opportunity to kind of blend a lot of things that I love, working with the Black program, working with youth, getting kids in nature, and then making sure they're really learning and getting something of value from the program in the time we have with them.
Love that. That was a great answer to that question, because I was listening a little bit and Dexter helps us prepare some questions here and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's a lot of different things. How do you roll that all into? So I love that. I love that answer. It seems like it was a very focused output and you were very thoughtful about how you wrap that in. Let's jump to your book, homie, because I'm always surrounded by all these fancy authors on this podcast, including you two. I got to step my game up for real.
Yeah, Jason.
What's your book? Shorebirds, a compare and contrast book that helps readers see some patterns and behaviors. Yeah, love it.
There it is. Look at that.
In Espanol.
Oh,
I didn't know that
too. We're going to link to that for sure.
Yeah, we definitely will. We definitely will.
Wow.
But this book, right? This is shorebirds are something that are pretty intimidating for a lot of folks. But it looks like you are trying to break it down in a way that makes it fun and accessible. So what inspired you to write it, and what do you hope people get from it?
This opportunity came to me, very fortunate. It's published through Arbordale Publishing Company, and the publishing company was looking for more authors. They wanted to tell new stories about wildlife. And I pitched to them, I would say I'm a shorebird expert to some, relatively speaking. And I know when I was in the field, so my research was in Long Island, New York, near Rockaway Beach a little bit, but it was in Fire Island, actually. Fire Island, New York. There was a movie about Fire Island that came out a couple years ago, so I can relate to some of those scenes in the movie. Fire Island was a fun, great beach. A lot of variety of shorebirds. And as a beginner birder myself, I found it difficult to distinguish anything that was not a piping plover. I knew my bird, but other things on the beach, I was like, is that a sanderling? Is that what kind of, these gull species are so tricky. And when they're juveniles with a lot of other species, when they're juvenile, you can't always tell what they are because their full adult markings are not developed. And there's a lot of confusion. Even though gulls are technically seabirds, I don't talk about gulls in my book. There's other shorebirds like oyster catchers and whimbrels and sanderlings. So I just thought about, when I worked with this publisher, how can I do kind of a simple compare and contrast, some lookalike species, using some vivid imagery and pictures to kind of show the variety of birds out there, and to kind of help. It's a children's book, but it is good for all ages. Just kind of compare, the different features of birds. But through that, it's also an opportunity just to describe this group in general. Shorebirds are often migratory and do some, just like other migratory birds, just complete these phenomenal performance. Like how do they go from the Arctic down to the Antarctic? Plovers in particular can go from Canada to Mexico. Sometimes just it's these little birds. How do they do that? So the book sprinkles in just different traits of that bird group in general, their migration patterns, their different ways of eating, how their bill shape. Well, just like with other, songbirds, shorebirds have different types of food that they eat. The fish, the crustaceans, the little bugs under the sand, not so much plants or seeds, but it's an opportunity to do comparisons, to talk about broad characteristics of shorebirds. And at the very end of the book, talks about ways to steward beaches. How can you make the habitats safer, healthier for shorebirds to survive, such as picking up your trash. Again, leave no trace when you're at the beach. Thinking about some beaches allow for driving on the beach. And that was a strange thing to learn in New York.
Yeah.
So just encouraging people to watch where they're either driving or ideally not drive, and watch where you're stepping. Respect any signage that says this beach is closed because of nesting season. Don't argue with the ranger. Don't argue with the people there. Understand that this beach is shared space. And my preference would be that it's a shorebird space. We have other beaches we can go to. These birds are it's called having high site fidelity. They're really loyal to the same spot that they can go back to year after year. And as beaches change, as more development occurs, more piers, more hotels, they're losing their habitats, not just for breeding grounds, but their stopover as they get food along the way, the way their migration patterns. The end of the book breaks down some concepts for kids about how you can be stewards, shorebird stewards as well. So it's kind of the three parts of the book.
I love that. And I was just thinking about when I did visit Rockaway. Rockaway is a historically Black community, and I know the homies at NYC Plover Project were working really hard to make sure that community was engaged and they understood why the beach was closed at certain times of the year, and they are making incredible progress. And there is nothing that warms my heart more than a historically Black community putting their arms around the idea of protecting an endangered species. There's a lot of overlap there. And so you writing this book both in English and in Spanish, makes it accessible to a lot of community members, where you're talking about people that drive on the beach. And I've seen it at Island Beach State Park in New Jersey, right? Like there's a certain level of entitlement that comes with that. And you're trying to teach people like, hey, like there's a better way to maybe do this. So it's just really nice to hear what you're talking about, because I've seen it happen out there in different communities.
Mm-hmm. I think another reason why I asked the publisher to make it bilingual was another park I work with here in Baltimore is called Masonville Cove. It is in South Baltimore, just south of the Baltimore Inner Harbor. And it's a community that has historically it's a frontline community. It has faced a lot of environmental justice hardships. It's a predominantly Black and brown, high Latino community. And when I was working at Patuxent Research Refuge, I was co-located with Masonville Cove. I did programs with them as well whenever I could. And I loved getting to know the community. I loved all the free programming that they offer, usually in English and in Spanish, because they have a couple rangers that are Latino. And I was just thinking of them, like, I would love to offer this book for the Masonville Cove community as they're building this. They have this nature center that was built in 2013, the Masonville Cove Environmental Education Center. And prior to that, it was a dredge facility, I guess I'm trying to think of Philly or Wisconsin, Madison, right? That's where you're at, Dexter. If there's like boats or like other ports, there's a port in Philly, right?
Yeah. We have dredging activities. We have a whole history of where that stuff has been dumped, the damage it does. Like fully understand that. Yep.
So that was Masonville Cove previously, and I think in like the 80s or 90s, they finally they really put a cap. They covered up all that really gross harbor waste and soil, and they started planting native grasses. So the campus has night and day from what it was in the 80s and 90s to what it is today, so that it's a public space for the community to enjoy. But I just love, again, highlighting that they are a newer nature space. I think it's a hidden gem of Baltimore. And the community in particular is a great community that comes out to events, that wants to engage with nature, that does community science efforts around Masonville Cove. So I was thinking about them when I made the book in Spanish as well.
Love it. Very intentional in the work that you do. You are also a contributor to Been Outside, Adventures of Black Women, Non-Binary, and Gender Non-Conforming People in Nature. How did that project come about for you?
Yeah, that's another kind of circle back to Black Birders Week connections, people like Bree. Mm-hmm. When I started in grad school, I was following people left and right on social media, following YouTube, following Brianna, following this girl named Amber Wendler. And Amber is another Black Birders Week conspirator, right? And like part of the inaugural group. And I followed her and noticed on her bio on Instagram that she is a grad student, a PhD student at Virginia Tech. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh my gosh, that's a school I'm about to go to. And she's like about my age. And I could see she used to run track and field, just like I did back in undergrad.
Checking all the boxes.
Things were just aligning. And I said, I think this girl is my new best friend. Like, I think I'm just going to make her my best friend when I move to this new city. And lo and behold, I meet her. I think I DM her like that summer and say, hey, I'm a new grad student coming in to do shorebird work. I've been following you. I just would love to meet you sometime. So of course we meet up for coffee or lunch, and she's just as amazing as I thought she was going to be. And since then we've been best friends, long story short. But Amber and I are very similar in a lot of ways. I've already said how in some ways we're very similar, but she also is a yes person and will kind of get opportunities directed her way and make the best of it. So she was approached. She's also super involved with community engagement, storytelling. She did work in Puerto Rico for her thesis, her dissertation on the Puerto Rican toady, and is a great storyteller about the Puerto Rican struggle and their identities around their wildlife. And so her name is getting out there. And I don't know, I think it was the Mountaineers publishing company, Mountaineers Books. They reached out to her and said, Amber, you're just an amazing individual. We would love to write a story about you, or you write a story for us and we'll publish it. But sometimes publishing companies don't realize how much work it takes to write a book. And when you are in the middle of your PhD and you are just trying to like get through your analysis and your field seasons and imposter syndrome on top of all that, she was like, and she's really smart about this. She's like, I cannot write a book about myself right now. But her counteroffer was to invite 19 other people she knew to make this collaborative book project for us each to tell our own stories about our experiences in nature. And that's how the collaborative effort came about. And of course, when she was selecting people, she reached out to me and said, Sharon, I'd love to have you be a contributor to this book as well. And that's how 20 total women, non-binary, and gender nonconforming people came together through kind of like a Google Doc, Google Drive, very much a virtual space, collaborating
whatever way you can make
stories.
it happen, right?
Yeah. So we use technology, right? The best we can, if it works. We put together this book in about, I think, a year and a half. I remember the launch was October 2023. That's when the book came out. And it was great just to see it in print. Great to also have Dr. Carolyn Finney, the renowned Dr. Carolyn Finney, wrote the foreword for our book. And the illustrator who made this amazing cover and some other kind of section break imagery throughout the book was another Black artist. I didn't know her work previously, but it's really beautiful. I don't have the book in front of me because I just gave it to my friend on loan. That was a project that, again, I love being in community with people. I love when people think of me for collaboration opportunities. And I love that the book is on Barnes & Noble. I think Amber has seen it at different nature centers across the country she's visited and road trips. Oh, this book is here. This book is here. And
Fantastic.
I think it's smart. It's smart that we have 20 different authors because we can each tap our own network to amplify, to promote, to spread it. And we're all across the country, people in California and people, like me in Maryland on the East Coast. I think it was an amazing project to work on. We're thinking about doing like an anniversary, like a tour or like a resurgence to celebrate and kind of re-amplify it again in a couple years. But that was an amazing project I only got to be involved in because I knew Amber, because I had DM'd her, because I applied to tech. I just think things always happen for a reason and people come into your life at the right time. Yeah, shout out to Amber Wendler. She has now finished her dissertation. She's now Dr. Amber Wendler. And
put some respect on it.
Put some respect on her name.
Yeah, shout out to her and all the Blackbirders Week folks. Y'all are amazing.
Yeah.
Jason, you were in a book similar to that with People the Planet Needs Now when Dudley put that together with all those amazing folks from all over the country.
Yeah.
Very, very, very awesome.
Yeah, and it's a great way. I have another homie that's writing a similar book from what I understand, but I can't reveal it yet. There is a great power in doing that storytelling from 19 different people. And how do you think that really helps folks build their own ecological identity or their own connection to nature? Yeah,
the stories in the book are so varied. And I really think it encourages people to know that their story could be that 20 or 21st or 22nd chapter of our book. Anyone could have been in this book.
I love that.
Anyone and everyone has a connection to nature. And some people write about it. They write about it in different ways. People will talk about they're actually on a backpacking trip. They're literally in nature the whole time through their story, the things they observe, the things that they struggle with. And that's one way to engage with nature and identify the backpacker. Other folks, maybe are in school and they're not in nature, but they're studying it and they're looking at pictures or video, like trail cameras. And, they are identifying as a researcher, but still really care about nature. So I think it just shows whether you are physically in that space, you are just thinking about that space, thinking about nature, you can foster your love and your care for it and curiosity about it. And I just think it was an amazing project.
Yeah, and I have not heard that term super often, ecological identity. It would be a great, I think, workshop exercise for folks to say, based on your experiences in life, what do you think your ecological identity is? So I love that. I love that term. So, and I was also going to say the book, I gave away 2 copies of that a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago. We had a indoor birding event, and Dexter will tell you I am a collector of books from authors that I admire, and then they sit on my bookshelf after I've looked at them or read them, and then they don't help anybody else. So we had a bird outing, and those 2 were snatched up quick. We had a bird outing in West Philly, and it was super awesome. So yeah, shout out to the homie, shout out to the book. I just think y'all are doing incredible work.
Yeah, thanks for spreading the word and sharing knowledge. I love giving books away. I love
the best. It's the
I think
best.
I gave Bird Brother by Rodney Stott.
Oh, that's another one I gave away
I gave
too.
it to a mentee of mine.
That one's so good.
And I think there was a second book I had. I think it was Dr. Ray Wynn Grant's book. She's a bear biologist.
Yeah. Well, she does more than bears too, right?
Oh,
She's got her own podcast. She'd be out there doing some wild stuff.
Mutual of Omaha now.
Yeah.
But her biography, I gave to another friend of mine. I think they were undergraduate students. They were kind of just coming out, have their degrees, but giving them examples, like a representation of people that are look like us, that are doing amazing things, that did not imagine that they'd be doing what they're doing now when they were, in their early 20s.
I wonder too if there's a Black or Indigenous naturalists library, like some organization that's putting together something like that, because I think we all do it inherently ourselves as we build our own ecological identity. It's just somebody out there, give us a shout out, right? If you know of such a resource, because that would be incredible.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of your work, Sharon, SharInNature, and a lot of the community outreach that you're doing, what inspired you to create SharInNature, and what gaps were you hoping to address through that work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as I wrapped up my time as an intern doing community engagement work with the Fish and Wildlife Service, I was honestly kind of like gearing up for a career potentially with that federal agency. And I have other peers, shout out to Deja Perkins, another Black Birders Week OG and friend of mine from way back in the day. I would see people like that make LLCs or make businesses and make websites, like promote their services. I said, I love that. And I think I have things to offer in my community. So let me just jump in this. It's a little scary. It's a little intimidating. Business, entrepreneurship. And I told myself for my birthday, which is April 2024, I'm going to gift myself my business. So I did all the paperwork, got everything aligned, paid what I had to pay, all my taxes or whatever, and launched SharInNature LLC, which is the same name as my Instagram. And I just wanted to have kind of an entity separate from my life as a potential federal employee so that there would be no conflict of interest. I knew that certain things, and I had heard from people like Brianna, right, someone who's been worth the service for a long time, that it's good to have a separation between yourself as a public servant and your private self. And so I just wanted to have that set up before I started a position with the Fish and Wildlife Service, so that I can say, before I was a public servant, I already had this business, so you can't tell me I can't do this stuff. That's kind of the foresight I tried to employ based on experiences and tips from my peers. And the business itself is really kind of a contract-based system where if people or organizations see a value or have a desire to host a nature-based program, I employ a variety of skills and interests and try my best to match their needs. So that has looked like working with the Maryland, or I guess the National Aquarium. They had a workshop for educators, for teachers, and wanted ways to incorporate more ecological concepts into their classrooms in engaging ways. And you can look these things up, but having a hands-on workshop can be more helpful. So I had a contract with the aquarium to host this event with these educators. It worked out wonderfully, and kind of learned some things through working with each partner, whether it be the aquarium, the Maryland Zoo. There's a group in the Baltimore Inner Harbor called the Waterfront Partnership. I've had a lot of work with them because they're trying to revitalize the harbor. And again, it's very urban space, a lot of skyscrapers, a lot of industry, a lot of boats, also a lot of tourism. Yeah. A lot of new folks coming into Baltimore to explore. And the Waterfront Partnership wants to have more nature spaces in their building. They've already built a couple new parks that are very eco-conscious, very bird-friendly, a lot of native plants to attract, native birds. And they want to have people like me activate those parks and have more pre-programming for the community. And so I work with the partnership. They'll contract me to do programs at their spaces. So I really just feeling a need that different organizations have because their staff don't have the capacity to do it. And I do this in my part-time, kind of my side hustle. I have a full-time job as well in the private sector, not in the federal government anymore, unfortunately.
Okay.
But it allows me to have like a 5 to 9 right after my 9 to 5. And it brings me a lot of joy, and it allows me to build community, build partnerships, and hopefully foster new passions in people around Baltimore.
We need it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't got to explain that 5 to 9 to me and Dexter.
Y'all get it. Y'all get it.
Hey, podcast, homie's an author. We both got our own nonprofit birding orgs. And, it's that stuff means a lot. And I wonder, we were talking about how people form their ecological identities, right? And we didn't really ask you exactly what your ecological identity was, but I'm actually more interested in, as you move between your private job and then your 5 to 9, right? And you're out there interacting with folks. How do you help? Like, what kind of questions do you ask people to help them start to build their own ecological identity? And do you even frame it like that for them? Like, if you're meeting some homies at the Baltimore Harbor, which I love that place, the inner harbor there. Take my family down to the aquarium all the time. Of course, I'm outside looking at gulls. I just imagine coming up to somebody down there for a non-nature related reason. Like, how would you approach them to help them start to build their ecological identity in that space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess like I would just define it as like how you as an individual connect or like integrate yourself into your environment. And ideally it's in a positive way, right? You can be researching it. You can be like backpacking through it. You can be observing it. You can be journaling about it. I think when I lead programs with people that are really kind of just starting to see nature as something that they can engage with and not in an extractive way, I try to ask them, what brings you joy about this space? What could you do around your home that could be enjoyable for you and not a labor? What things could you do to improve some wildlife or like planting native grasses, native plants, putting up a bird feeder, putting up some window decals into your windows to prevent bird collisions? What types of things do you already like to do, and could you make a little bit more ecologically conscious? How do you like to show up in nature? Do you like to just walk for fitness? While you're doing that, could you take moments of mindfulness to just feel the wind, to smell something?
Yeah.
Not everyone has to be like a birder, but what can you do slightly differently to just engage with nature in a different way and hopefully in a positive way? I love walking. Again, I started off running outside and being a trail runner. But then there's times it's good just to walk slow. It's good just to notice the different shades of a bark on a tree. Why are some trees holding on to their leaves? And why are some dropping their leaves? Just slowing down. I love mindfulness in nature. And I think in the times that we're living in right now, the stress, the anxiety, the frustration, like it's good to see nature as a space to just remember a bigger picture and larger things are out there, and that it's such a healing space. And, we want to preserve that. We want to keep having these spaces that are calm and tranquil and not having, highways running through all the forests that we have. So I think it becomes like a simple question becomes really deep, really fast sometimes. Asking someone, what do you enjoy about nature? You kind of get into like, how can you protect it at the end of all this? How can you steward it better in ways that are meaningful to you and are ways that are sustainable for you? You don't want to ask someone to do something that is, again, too laborious for them because they won't do it. But what's something you already do that you can shift a little bit differently? If you like decorating your house, add some window decals to your house.
Sure.
That's kind of
I love that.
Thoughts around that question.
It makes me laugh too, because I'm still trying to figure out how to run and bird at the same time, because I can't hear the birds over my own dry heaving and breathing and get my life together. I love that. Walking is better. I have a homie here in Philly, Nicole, who leads walking groups for Black women and folks around the city. And once she became a birder, she would get yelled at because she kept stopping to look at birds instead of them getting their steps in. So I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And driving and birding is definitely a guilty, like, you gotta be careful with that.
Rough-legged hawk out here. Yeah. I got one on the back of my truck that says I stop for birds. So hopefully.
Yeah, I got a bumper sticker so people don't think I'm crazy.
I have a disclaimer. I'm not an erratic driver. Just get a little looking at that vulture or osprey or, something flying overhead.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell too, Sharon, you really do take pride in getting people who may be new or curious about nature outside and really kind of creating spaces for those folks. So for somebody that wants to build a deeper relationship with nature, or they're curious about getting outside, but they feel intimidated or they're unsure where they should start, what type of advice would you give to them?
Yeah, that's a very valid fear, really valid apprehension to have around exploring a new space, starting a new activity, a new hobby. Anything new can be a little intimidating. I definitely feel safer in community. I think we're fortunate to have a robust number of nonprofits and community orgs that are very local to a certain area that go on nature walks, that go on trail hikes. I'm also a volunteer leader with Outdoor Afro, and we lead at least monthly, if not more frequently, nature events all around the country. And I work with the DMV, network. And that's a space, again, you kind of meet through this app and you register for events and just kind of go and meet up with a leader that can kind of walk you through. They can answer questions. They can tell you what kind of equipment or tools, if you're going backpacking or camping, those types of tools you may need. For my events, I'm fortunate that I actually offer binoculars for people because, shout out to Knox Provisions.
Hey,
I'm one of their naturalists as well. And they've given me a demo kit to use for my events.
Yeah. Chris and the homies out there are awesome at Knox Provision. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think for people that want to just engage with nature kind of recreationally, that's my advice for them. But I also wanted to talk about people that maybe want to study and be an ecologist, biologist, more of the scientific data collection route. And coming back to some of my early experiences with learning to be a biologist through the passerine banding I ended up doing in Virginia Tech, but also at Masonville Cove. So as I mentioned before, we all talked about piping plovers are endangered and you need permits to do any kind of wildlife handling research, especially with an endangered species. And before my professor could sign off on me going up to New York and holding birds all summer, he needed to prove that I had handled, I think, 30 or so was the requirement for this permit from USGS, U.S. Ecological Survey. And I said, well, Jim, I have no experience. What do I do? And he says, well, fortunately, there's some professors at Virginia Tech that also do passerine banding. I think they were working with house finches for looking at some biology or disease in them. So I learned about mist netting for the first time, how researchers will set up these really sheer, almost like a screen door, net with multiple trowels and pockets and they kind of set them up along a forest edge so that birds kind of flitting through the forest looking for food just kind of run into this net, fall down, and we carefully, very, very carefully extract them from the net. So I learned from that professor the delicacy of working the bird's legs and wings and body out of the fine mist nets. And then holding, the sparrow with the bander's grip versus photographer's grip, and just kind of learning the vernacular and feeling like, okay, I am a scientist now. I know bird, stuff, bird terms. But then I had to realize, I don't think piping plovers, fly through trees like that. We don't use the same approach to capture birds. My birds I've been working with. So although I was learning how to hold birds, I had to then relearn another tactic for trapping our piping plovers to assess we really track their population. We put these color bands or sometimes metal bands on their legs, and then would identify that bird throughout the season and see how they're growing, and then their chicks, how they're growing, and then we'd see them come back year after year with those same flags or bands. But with the piping plovers, we would just deploy a really simple, almost like a cartoon, Wile E. the Coyote box and a stick approach. And again, this is all permitted, and this is kind of the protocol that a lot of shorebird nesting that's used for beach nesting birds, rather. We would just kind of set up the box over top of their nest and wait for them to come back and incubate, sit on their eggs. And we just pull the string so the box would fall on them, and the box had a opening at the top and just kind of pull them out.
This very much is starting to sound like a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner operation here.
Exactly.
That's what I'm imagining. But I love that you were out there doing it. That's just a really, really incredible story. Having to translate that skill, right, and get that from what you learned in the forest out into the fields and on the beach, and then be able to kind of explain that journey to people of your own apprehensions, your own fear, and how you overcame that. So it's just a great example. Now we are at the best part of the podcast, the lightning round. So I hope you're ready, because we're going to ask you some really
get your
tough
running
questions.
stretches on.
Yeah,
get ready.
Yeah. So these are meant to be quick, couple word answers at most, just right off the top of your head, and we'll see where your reflexes lie. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
You could choose one: wetlands, forest, or grasslands. Which ecosystem do you feel most connected to?
Wetlands, for sure. A little smelly, but I like it.
an ecosystem function you think does not get enough attention?
I know it's lightning round. I've already talked about the filtering of wetlands and the grasses, but I have to double down on that. I think the sponge, the absorption of nutrients by wetland plants is such an important feature. They're like the liver or the lungs. I guess the liver of the ecosystem.
Yeah, filtering out all the impurities. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. The species that taught you the most about how ecosystems really work.
What came to mind first was a great blue heron, also kind of a wading bird. They interact with the environment in different ways through how they eat, how they wade through the water, and how they like roost. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Great blue. One urban ecology myth you would love to clear up.
That urban parks are dangerous and, deadly. There are some parks in Baltimore that have bad histories, but they're really working to rewrite those narratives. But not all urban parks are dangerous.
All right. What energizes you the most? I think I know the answer to this one. Field work, data analysis, or community engagement?
Yeah, definitely community engagement.
Yeah.
Field work is a close second.
I think the rest of the podcast made that clear.
What is one sign of an ecosystem's health you notice right away when you step outside?
The lack or presence of life. If there's a variety of species chirping, walking through, if it's an absence of life, that's very, very bad, of course.
All right. A research question you still find yourself thinking about.
Why aren't there more Black people studying wildlife ecology?
Hey, I hear that. That's some deep research.
Right? A climate change impact you are paying close attention to right now.
The hybridization of blue jay and that gray jay down in Mexico and Texas, and how
the green jay, I think it is.
The green jay, yes, the green jay and the blue jay. How species are evolving way faster than they're supposed to historically. So that's concerning to me because they won't have. There's no niche for them. So I think the hybridization of species as a result of climate change is going to be something I'm paying attention to.
Yep, ranges are moving. It's going to happen. As Jeff Goldblum says, nature finds a way. All right, last one. Finish this sentence. Ecological identity begins when blank.
It begins when you become curious about nature and how you can give to it and not just take from it.
Fantastic.
Great.
Loved it. You made it through the lightning round, homie. You made it through the
It's a lot of pressure. I know.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but you did it. But listen, we're always running out of time here. Sharon, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your research, and your writing. This conversation really highlights how birding, ecosystems, outreach, and story can reshape how people see themselves and the natural world. Thank you again.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Yay!
Thanks, Dexter. Thanks, Jason.